I used to believe silence was peaceful. But when you live alone long enough, you learn that silence can be the loudest sound in the world. It hums in the corners of your house, follows you from room to room, and sits beside you at the table while you eat your dinner for one. It's been years since laughter echoed through these walls. Years since I woke up to the sound of footsteps or the smell of pancakes on a Sunday morning. I never imagined my home, once filled with noise, arguments, joy, birthdays, and the chaos of family, would someday become a museum of memories. Every photo on the wall is frozen in time, and every object tells a story no one remembers anymore. I live surrounded by ghosts of the living. People who are still out there somewhere, just not here. My name is Margaret, and I'm 74 years old. There was a time when I was proud to say I had a big family. 2 children, Emily and John, and later 3 beautiful grandchildren. I thought I'd grow old surrounded by them. I thought I'd be the grandmother who baked cookies every Christmas, who spoiled her grandkids with hugs and stories. But somewhere along the way, something broke. Maybe it was time. Maybe it was distance. Or maybe it was just life. It started with fewer phone calls, then fewer visits. Birthdays turned into texts, sometimes belated, sometimes forgotten. And before I knew it, the silence had replaced everything. I'd tell myself they were busy. My daughter Emily had her own family, her own job, her own worries. My son John lived in another state. He used to call every Sunday evening, but eventually those calls stopped too. I told myself it was fine, that I didn't need anyone, but deep down I did, more than I wanted to admit. Every evening I sit by the same window with a cup of tea that always gets cold before I finish it. The street outside is quiet, and sometimes I watch the neighborhood kids playing. Their laughter drifts through the air, reminding me of when Emily and John used to chase each other across this very lawn. I can still see them, 2 little blurs of life and light, running, yelling, growing up too fast. There's one memory I always come back to. It was Christmas Eve, maybe 30 years ago. Emily must have been 9, John 11. They stayed up late with me, helping me wrap presents for their father, who was still working the night shift. We laughed so much that night, about nothing at all. I remember Emily struggling to cut the wrapping paper straight, and John pretending to be Santa, using a pillow for a belly. It's strange how some memories stay sharp while others fade. But now, even Christmas feels like another ordinary day. I still set up the small artificial tree I've had for decades, but it's more out of habit than joy. I hang up stockings no one will ever use and whisper, "Merry Christmas," to the empty room. Last year I tried calling Emily. I let the phone ring until it went to voicemail. I left a message. Something simple like, "Hi, sweetheart, just wanted to hear your voice." She never called back. A few weeks later, I saw pictures on social media. Her family had gone skiing that winter. They all looked so happy, smiling, bundled in snow gear. And I remember sitting at my kitchen table staring at my phone screen until my eyes burned. That night, I didn't cry. I just sat there, quietly folding laundry, telling myself it's okay. But inside, I felt like something inside me had quietly cracked, like a piece of glass under pressure. The hardest part isn't loneliness. It's the idea that maybe they've just moved on, that maybe I don't fit into their world anymore. I wonder if they ever mention me. Do they ever say, "We should visit Grandma soon"? Or has my name become one of those forgotten things that only comes up when they see an old photo? Sometimes I try to convince myself that maybe they think I'm fine, that they don't want to bother me. But then I see the neighbors, their children, visiting every weekend, bringing groceries, helping with the yard. And I can't help but wonder, what did I do wrong? It's strange how memory works. You remember the small things, the way your child used to hold your hand, the way they used to run to you after scraping their knee, crying, "Mommy, it hurts." You remember the warmth of their little fingers, the sound of their laughter. And then one day, It's all gone. You blink, and they're grown. They have their own lives. And somehow, you've become an afterthought. I spend my mornings reading, my afternoons walking around the garden, and my nights listening to old records. The music helps me feel less alone. It fills the space between my thoughts. There's one record I always play, Moon River. My husband used to love that song. He's been gone 15 years now. Sometimes when it plays, I can almost feel him beside me, his hand over mine, tapping to the rhythm. If he were here, he'd probably scold me for feeling so sorry for myself. He'd say, "Margie, you've got a big heart. Don't let the silence steal it." But it's hard. It's hard to keep that heart open when it keeps getting heavier with every passing year. Then came that evening. The one that changed everything. It was a Thursday, I think, late winter. The air outside had that kind of chill that seeps into your bones. I had just finished dinner, soup and toast, the same meal I've had most nights lately. I turned on the TV just for the noise, but I wasn't really watching. I was halfway through knitting a small scarf, one I wasn't even sure who it was for, when I heard it. A knock. It was soft at first, almost uncertain. I froze, my needle still in hand. I wasn't expecting anyone. My heart started racing. Maybe it was the mailman, or one of those kids selling cookies. Then it came again. 3 gentle knocks. I set my knitting aside and stood up slowly. My knees creaked the way they always do, but I didn't care. I walked toward the door, cautious but curious. It's strange. After so many years of quiet, even a knock can sound like thunder. When I opened the door, the porch light flickered, and standing there, bundled in a coat too big for her, cheeks red from the cold, was a girl. She couldn't have been more than 16. For a second, I thought my eyes were playing tricks on me. She looked so familiar. The shape of her face, the way her eyes sparkled when they met mine. My breath caught in my throat. "Hi," she said softly, clutching her backpack. "Are you Grandma Margaret?" It took me a moment to find my voice. "Yes," I whispered. "I am." And then she smiled, a trembling, nervous kind of smile, and said, "I'm Lily, Emily's daughter." My heart stopped. My hands trembled so much I had to hold onto the doorframe for balance. My granddaughter. I hadn't seen her since she was 6 years old. "Lily?" I said, my voice cracking. "Oh, sweetheart, what are you doing here?" She hesitated for a moment, glancing over her shoulder at the dark street behind her. "Can I come in?" I stepped aside, my mind spinning. As she walked in, I caught the faint scent of her shampoo, coconut and something sweet, and I felt a rush of warmth, like life was suddenly flowing back into the house. I closed the door, my hands trembling, and turned to face her. She looked older, of course, taller. But those eyes, those same blue eyes she had as a child, they were Emily's eyes. "I hope it's okay," she said softly, setting her backpack down. "I didn't really tell anyone I was coming." And just like that, 1,000 emotions crashed over me. Confusion, fear, joy, disbelief. "Of course it's okay," I said, tears already welling up. "You're home, sweetheart. You're home." For a long moment, we just stood there in the living room, staring at each other like 2 people caught between past and present. The silence that used to fill this house, the kind that always felt so heavy, suddenly became gentle. It wasn't empty anymore. It was full of something I hadn't felt in years. Presence. She looked so nervous standing there, twisting her fingers together. "I wasn't sure if you'd remember me," she said, almost in a whisper. I smiled through tears that had already started to fall. "Oh, sweetheart, how could I forget?" I reached out slowly, afraid she might pull away, but she didn't. She let me hug her, and when she did, my goodness, I could feel every lonely year melt away. She was real, warm, alive, my granddaughter. When I finally let her go, I wiped my eyes with the sleeve of my sweater and said, "You look just like your mother did at your age." She smiled a little at that, a soft, shy smile that didn't quite reach her eyes. "Mom says I look more like Dad." I hesitated, unsure of how to answer. There was something guarded in her tone, something fragile. So instead I just said, "Would you like some tea? I still make it the old way. Kettle on the stove, not one of those noisy machines." She nodded. "That sounds nice." As I walked toward the kitchen, she followed slowly, her eyes moving over everything like she was walking through a museum. I wondered what she saw. The old curtains, the faded family photos, the wooden furniture that had outlived trends. I hoped she saw warmth, not wear. I set 2 cups on the table, poured the tea, and tried to keep my hands steady. My heart was still fluttering like a trapped bird. "So," I said, sliding a cup toward her, "what brings you here, sweetheart?" She looked down at her tea, stirring it even though she hadn't added anything. I wanted to see you." Something about the way she said it, soft, unsure, made my chest tighten. "Well, I'm glad you did," I said. "It's been far too long." "I know," she said, her voice small. "Mom doesn't really talk about you much." Her words landed like a quiet blow. I tried not to show it, but she must have seen something in my eyes because she quickly added, "I mean, she doesn't say bad things or anything. She just doesn't bring you up." I smiled, though it hurt. "That's all right. People get busy. Life moves fast." But inside I could feel that old ache again. The one I'd buried for years. The silence, the distance, the way my daughter had slowly faded out of my life. "Mom says you used to live closer," Lily continued. "I did," I said, looking out the kitchen window. "After your grandpa passed, I moved here. The house was too quiet, but I thought maybe one day everyone would come visit. I kept hoping." She nodded, still looking down. "I always wanted to visit, but I didn't know how to ask. It felt like it wasn't something we were supposed to do." Her words made my throat tighten. "Not supposed to?" She shrugged. "Whenever I brought you up, Mom would get quiet. Dad too, I think. Something happened a long time ago, but no one ever told me what. I didn't know what to say. There were so many things I wanted to ask. Why Emily stopped calling, what I had done wrong, whether she'd ever told Lily about the Christmas cards I sent every year that never got a reply. But I stayed silent. Sometimes the truth hurts more than the unknown. Instead, I said softly, "I'm just glad you're here now." Lily smiled a little. Me too. After that, we talked, awkwardly at first, but slowly, it began to feel easier. She told me about school, how she loved painting and writing, how she wanted to study art someday. I told her about the garden out back, how I'd managed to grow tomatoes even though the soil was terrible. We laughed a little. It was strange. She felt both like a stranger and someone I'd known all my life. After a while, I noticed her glancing at the clock. "Do your parents know you're here?" I asked carefully. She hesitated. "No," that answer made my heart skip. "Oh, I just needed to see you," she said. "I saw your name on a card Mom got in the mail once, and I looked up your address online. I wanted to meet you for myself." I took a slow breath. That must have taken a lot of courage. She shrugged, but I could see her lip tremble. "I was scared you'd be mad, or that you wouldn't want to see me." My chest ached at that. "Oh, sweetheart, I could never be mad at you. You're my granddaughter, your family. That never changes, no matter what anyone says." She smiled again. That soft, grateful smile that looked so much like her mother's when she was little. For a moment, it felt like the years had folded in on themselves, like I was looking at both Emily and Lily at once. One memory, one heartbeat. We ended up talking for hours, about silly things mostly. Her favorite movies, her friends, the art projects she was working on. But beneath it all, I could feel something heavy pressing between us, something unspoken. When the clock struck 9, she stood up reluctantly. "I should probably go," she said. "Will you be all right getting home?" I asked. She nodded. "I took the bus. I can catch the last one back." "Let me drive you," I said. She shook her head. "It's okay, really. I didn't want her to leave." The thought of the house going quiet again so soon made my stomach twist. "At least take this," I said, rummaging in the kitchen drawer and pulling out an old scarf. "It gets colder at night." She smiled, wrapping it around her neck. "Thank you." As I walked her to the door, I felt this strange mixture of joy and fear. Joy that she had found me, fear that it might be the last time I'd see her. She opened the door, turned back and said softly, "Can I come again sometime?" "Anytime," I said without hesitation. "The door's always open for you." She nodded and stepped out into the night. I stood there watching her walk down the street until she disappeared into the darkness. The porch light flickered again, and for a moment, I thought maybe I'd dreamed the whole thing. But when I closed the door and turned back to the living room, I saw it, her teacup still sitting on the table half full. I smiled. It had been years since someone had left a cup behind in this house. Years since there was any sign of life besides my own. That night, I didn't sleep much. I kept replaying her words, her smile, the way she'd said, "I wasn't sure if you'd remember me." I wanted to call Emily right then, to tell her Lily had come, to ask her why she'd never said anything, to maybe start again, but the phone stayed silent on the table. I was afraid she'd hang up, afraid she'd tell me to stay away. So instead, I sat by the window again, looking out into the night. And for the first time in years, the silence didn't feel quite so lonely. It felt expectant, like something had shifted, something small, but real a beginning. The next few days after Lily's visit felt brighter somehow. I went about my usual routines. Morning coffee, watering the plants, tidying the kitchen. But everything seemed to have a little more meaning. The chair across from mine at the table didn't look so empty anymore. There was a warmth in the house that had been missing for so long. Like someone had opened the curtains after years of darkness. I didn't know if she'd really come back, though. A part of me was afraid she might have felt guilty later, that her parents might have found out and scolded her, and that would be the end of it. I told myself not to expect anything. But hope. Well, hope has a way of sneaking in, even when you try to keep it out. On the third day, I heard the familiar sound of soft knocks on the door. My heart jumped. I wiped my hands on a towel and hurried to answer. And there she was again, standing on the porch, scarf still wrapped around her neck. "Hi, Grandma," she said, smiling shyly. I couldn't help it. I laughed, a little breathless. "You came back." "I told you I would." She stepped inside like she'd always belonged here. I made us tea again, chamomile this time, and she pulled her phone from her pocket. "I wanted to show you something," she said, scrolling for a moment before turning the screen toward me. It was a photo, a picture she'd drawn of my living room. My worn sofa, the old lamp, even the crooked family photo on the wall. But the way she'd drawn it, warm light, soft shadows, tiny details, it made my old house look beautiful again. "Oh, sweetheart," I whispered, touching my chest. "That's just lovely," she smiled. I wanted to remember it. We talked for hours again. She told me about her school art show, how nervous she was, how her teacher said she had a real gift. I told her about the time her mom painted the dog blue when she was 5, and we both laughed until tears rolled down our cheeks. It felt natural, easy, like we'd slipped into a rhythm that had been waiting for us. And just like that, her visits became regular. Every week, sometimes twice if she could sneak away. She always said she was going to the library or studying with friends. And I didn't ask too many questions. I didn't want to scare her off with talk about her parents. I just wanted to enjoy her while I could. She'd help me around the house, change light bulbs, help in the garden, He even fixed the old clock that hadn't worked in years. We'd cook together too. Just simple things. Mashed potatoes, chicken soup, apple pie. She said she liked learning old-fashioned recipes. And I'd tease her about how everything tastes better when you add love. One afternoon, while we were folding laundry together, she said, "Grandma, can I ask you something?" "Of course. Why don't you come to family things anymore? Like holidays or birthdays?" The question hit me like a cold wind. I tried to smile to keep my voice steady. "I wasn't invited, sweetheart." She frowned. "That doesn't make sense." I hesitated. "Sometimes families drift apart. People say things they can't take back. And then time passes, and it gets harder to fix." She stared at me for a moment. "Did you and Mom have a fight?" I looked at her. Really looked. And I saw so much of my daughter in her face that it made my heart ache. Not a fight exactly. Just misunderstandings. I think she felt I was too involved when she was younger. Maybe I said too much. Tried to help too much. "You were just being a mom," Lily said. I smiled sadly. "Yes, but sometimes even love can be too much." She was quiet after that. I could tell she was thinking, turning it over in her mind like a puzzle piece that didn't quite fit. Later that night, after she'd gone home, I sat in my chair again and looked around the quiet house. It didn't feel empty anymore. It felt alive with memory. I could still hear her laughter echoing faintly in the rooms. But I also felt something else. Worry. What if Emily found out? What if she forbade Lily from coming again? I decided I couldn't let fear ruin this. I'd spent too many years being afraid of losing people. I wasn't going to lose her too. Not without at least trying. So the next time Lily came, I said gently, "Sweetheart, maybe one day you could bring your mom. I'd love to see her again." Her eyes widened a little. "I don't know if she'd come." "That's okay," I said. "Just think about it." She nodded, though I could tell she was unsure. The next week, when she visited, she seemed quieter than usual. "I told Mom I came to see you," she said finally. My heart skipped. "You did?" She nodded. She didn't say much at first, but then she got kind of upset. Said there were reasons you and she don't talk. She didn't tell me what, though. I swallowed hard. "What did you say?" "I told her that you're kind, and that you make the best apple pie, and that you miss her." I felt my throat tighten, and before I could stop them, tears filled my eyes. "You said that?" She smiled softly. "Yeah, I told her she should come see you." "And what did she say?" She didn't answer, but she didn't say no either. That night I didn't sleep again, but it wasn't the restless kind of sleeplessness I used to know. It was different. I felt something stirring inside me, something I hadn't felt in years. Hope. Weeks passed like that. Lily kept coming, and little by little, I began to believe that maybe, just maybe, this was the start of something healing. One afternoon, as we were setting the table for lunch, Lily's phone buzzed. She picked it up, frowned, then said, "It's Mom." My hands froze mid-motion. "She says she's outside," Lily said, looking at me nervously. For a long moment, I couldn't move. My heart thudded so loudly I could hear it in my ears. "Outside?" "She wanted to pick me up," Lily said quietly. "I didn't tell her I'd be here." I stood there, hands trembling, staring at the door. After all these years, after all the silence, after all the nights I sat wondering if she even remembered me, my daughter was outside. Without thinking, I said softly, "Let her in." Lily's eyes widened. "Are you sure?" I nodded, though my throat felt dry. "Yes, let's not hide anymore." She hesitated for a moment, then walked to the door and opened it. And there she was, Emily, my little girl. Only, not so little anymore. Her hair was shorter now, her face sharper, older, but I'd know her anywhere. She froze in the doorway when she saw me. For a long moment, we just stared at each other. the air thick with everything we'd never said. "Hi, Mom," she said finally, her voice barely above a whisper. I took a shaky breath. "Hi, sweetheart." And just like that, the years between us seemed to collapse into that small space. A hallway, a doorway, a moment too full of memory to hold. For a long moment, none of us moved. The world outside was still. No wind, no birds, not even the sound of passing cars. It felt like time had paused just for us. My hands were trembling so much that I had to clasp them together to steady them. I didn't know what to say. I had imagined this moment so many times in my head. But now that it was here, every word felt too heavy to speak. Emily stood in the doorway, holding her purse like a shield. Her eyes flicked from me to Lily, then back again. "I didn't know you were here," she said softly to her daughter. "I'm sorry, Mom," Lily murmured. "I just wanted to see her." Emily's face softened just slightly. Then she looked at me again. "Can I come in?" I nodded quickly, afraid that if I spoke, my voice might crack. "Of course, sweetheart. Always." She stepped inside slowly, as if crossing an invisible line. I could see her eyes moving around the room. The framed photos, the faded curtains, the teapot still steaming on the table. I wondered what she was thinking. Did it feel familiar to her? Or did it feel like a stranger's home now? Lily, sensing the weight in the air, quietly excused herself and went to the kitchen, pretending to busy herself with dishes. I knew she was giving us space. That small, brave girl had brought us back together, and she seemed to understand what needed to happen next. Emily and I stood facing each other in the living room, the same room where she used to play with her dolls, where I'd bandaged her scraped knees, where we used to dance to old songs when the radio played something we both liked. But now, there was a distance between us that even the floorboards seemed to feel. "I didn't think I'd ever come back here," she said after a while. "I didn't think you would either," I admitted quietly, "but I'm glad you did." She nodded slowly, eyes glistening just a bit. "I didn't know Lily was visiting. She told me yesterday. I didn't know what to say." "You don't have to say anything," I said, even though every part of me wanted her to. She took a deep breath. "Mom, there's a lot I've been angry about. Things from when I was younger. I swallowed hard. I know." "You always tried to control everything," she said, her voice trembling. "My choices, my marriage, my parenting. It always felt like you didn't trust me to live my own life." Her words cut deep, but I didn't flinch. I just listened. That's what I should have done years ago. "You were always so strong," she continued, "and I was always trying to live up to that. When I couldn't, I felt like I was failing you. And then, when I made decisions you didn't agree with, you'd tell me so, even when I didn't ask." Tears burned in my eyes, but I kept my gaze steady. "I know I said too much. I thought I was helping. I didn't realize how much it hurt you." She let out a shaky breath. "When Dad passed, it got worse. I was grieving too, but you acted like I didn't care enough, like I wasn't doing enough for you. I just couldn't handle it anymore." I pressed my lips together, remembering those dark months after her father's passing. I had been so lost, so lonely, so desperate for someone to help me make sense of the emptiness. I was broken, Emily. I didn't know how to be alone. Her face softened, but her shoulders were still tense. "I know you were hurting. I just didn't know how to help you without losing myself." We stood in silence for a moment, both of us trembling under the weight of memories. Then, I whispered, "I never stopped loving you, Emily. Not for a single second." Her chin quivered. "I know, Mom, I just didn't know how to forgive you." That broke me. I stepped forward, tears streaming freely now, and I didn't know how to ask you to. For a second, I thought she might pull away, that the years had hardened her too much. But then she did something I hadn't expected. She took a step toward me, and then another, and before I knew it, she was in my arms, crying softly into my shoulder like she used to when she was little. "I missed you," she whispered, her voice breaking. I held her tightly, my own tears falling into her hair. "Oh, sweetheart, I missed you more than you'll ever know." Lily peeked around the corner then, her eyes wide and shiny with tears. When she saw us hugging, she smiled, that bright, pure smile that could light up the whole house. "Are you okay?" she asked gently. Emily nodded, still holding on to me. "Yeah, baby, we're okay." It felt like a small miracle. We sat down together afterward, 3 generations, sitting at one old kitchen table, passing around slices of pie that had gone cold, but somehow tasted sweeter than ever. Emily and I talked for hours, quietly, carefully, not pretending the past hadn't happened, but not letting it own us anymore either. We shared stories, laughter, even some of the pain, and in between the words, forgiveness began to take root. Fragile, but real. Before they left that night, Emily stood in the doorway again, just like before. Only this time her eyes were softer. "Maybe next week you could come to our house for dinner," she said. I froze, unsure if I'd heard her right. "You mean that?" She smiled faintly. "Yeah, I think it's time." I nodded, my heart swelling with something warm and heavy. Gratitude, love, relief. "I'd like that very much." When they left, the house was quiet again. But it wasn't lonely anymore. It felt alive with new beginnings. That night, I sat in my armchair, looking at the flickering light from the old lamp. I thought about how life can twist and turn, how love can fracture and still find its way back home. And for the first time in years, I whispered a thank you, not to anyone in particular, but maybe to life itself, for giving me one more chance to be a mother, for giving me Lily, and for bringing my family back to my door. It had been 2 months since that night, the night Emily came back home. Since then, the air around me had changed. The silence that used to echo through my little house now carried laughter, voices, and the soft hum of life again. Emily had started calling me once or twice a week, sometimes just to check in, sometimes to ask for a recipe or advice about Lily's school projects. Each call felt like a gift. And then one afternoon in mid-December, as I was sitting by the window knitting a scarf, my phone rang. It was Emily. "Hey, Mom," she said, her voice carrying that same nervous warmth it always did now. "So, Lily's been asking about Christmas this year," I smiled softly. "Oh, what about it?" "She wants to have everyone together at our place. You know, family dinner, presents, everything." My fingers froze mid-stitch. "That sounds lovely, sweetheart," she hesitated. "Would you come?" I didn't answer right away. Not because I didn't want to, but because the tears in my eyes were making it hard to see. "I'd be honored," I said finally, my voice trembling. She let out a small laugh. "Good. Lily will be thrilled." When the call ended, I sat there for a long time, my hands resting in my lap. For years, Christmas had been a day I dreaded. A day that reminded me how quiet my home had become, how far my family had drifted. But this year it would be different. I spent the next week wrapping small gifts. Nothing fancy, just little things that carried meaning. A framed photo of Emily as a little girl, a bracelet for Lily, engraved with the words, "You brought us back." And for both of them, a handwritten letter. Not to apologize again, but to thank them for coming home. When Christmas Eve finally arrived, the world outside was blanketed in snow. My little house looked like something out of an old postcard, with a single candle flickering in the window. I bundled up, clutching my gifts, and stepped outside into the crisp night air. The snow crunched softly beneath my boots as I made my way down the path. Emily's house wasn't far, just a short drive away. But as I neared it, I could already see the golden glow of the windows and hear the faint sound of laughter spilling out into the street. When I reached the door, it opened before I could even knock. Lily stood there, grinning from ear to ear. "Merry Christmas, Grandma," she shouted, throwing her arms around me. I laughed, holding her close. "Merry Christmas, my love." Behind her, I saw Emily, her eyes soft, her smile warm. "Come in, Mom. Dinner's almost ready." The moment I stepped inside, the scent of roasted turkey and cinnamon filled the air. The tree sparkled in the corner, ornaments glinting under the lights. There were stockings hung along the mantel, and one of them, I noticed, had my name stitched into it. It was small, but it meant everything. Throughout the evening, we talked, we laughed, and for the first time in years, I felt like I belonged again. Emily carved the turkey, Lily handed out presents, and I just watched, taking in the sight of my family, the sound of their voices, the warmth that had once been lost. When it came time to open gifts, I gave them mine. Emily's eyes filled with tears when she saw the framed photo. "Mom, this was taken the day we made cookies, wasn't it?" I nodded, smiling. "You were so proud of that first batch, even though they came out burnt." She laughed softly, wiping her eyes. "I remember." Lily slipped the bracelet onto her wrist and hugged me tightly. "Thank you, Grandma. I'll never take it off." My throat tightened. "You're the reason I got it for you, because you reminded me what family means." The night went on, and for the first time in what felt like forever, I wasn't looking at what I'd lost. I was looking at what I still had. Emily caught me watching her and smiled from across the table. "I'm really glad you came tonight," she said softly. "So am I, sweetheart," I replied, "more than you'll ever know." After dinner, we gathered near the tree for one last surprise. Lily handed me a small envelope. Inside was a card, handmade, with glitter and glue and love. It read, "Dear Grandma, you're not forgotten. You're home." I looked up, and both of them were smiling at me. Emily's eyes glistening with emotion, Lily beaming with pride. I couldn't stop the tears that came then. They weren't sad tears, though. They were tears of peace, of gratitude. That night, as I left their home, the snow was falling again. Soft, gentle, like the world was finally at rest. I stood for a moment on the porch, watching the lights shimmer through the frosted windows. And I whispered, "Thank you. Not just for the dinner or the gifts, but for the second chance, for the love that had found its way back through the cracks of time and pride and pain. Life is funny that way. Sometimes it takes losing everything to realize what truly matters. And sometimes, just when you think it's too late, love knocks again." When I got home that night, I sat by the window, a cup of tea in my hands, watching the snow drift past the glass. The house felt warm, not from the heater, but from something deeper. I thought of all the people out there who might be spending the holidays alone, waiting for a call that never comes, a door that never opens. And if you're listening to me now, if you've ever felt forgotten or unwanted, please, hold on. Love has a way of finding its way back, even when it seems impossible. Because sometimes, the heart just needs a little time to remember where it belongs. And before the screen fades, I want to say, if this story touched you, even a little, please like, share, and subscribe. Not for me, but so someone out there, feeling lonely tonight, might find this and remember that they are not alone. Because no one deserves to feel forgotten. Not on Christmas, not ever.